main types of flowers that we use. Those are roses, mums, and carnations. We also have like tons of others, but the basic three are those. Roses, this is actually a chart we have up in the shop. This is how we order roses. If we get a client that needs a certain kind of rose, we just call. This company's called Virgin Farms, and they'll send it out. And it also gives customers the opportunity just to see all the different kinds of roses. And there are so many more varieties than this. But these are just the garden ones, and they smell super good. There's also, like a lot of people, when they hear mum, they think like just the little round button mums, but there's a lot more mums that are super cool. These are like spider mums. There's some called football mums. And they're actually about like this big around too. They're super huge.
That's
And
cool.
they're really big.
I like that.
This one?
The one above it.
That
I like
one?
that one. That one's
Yeah.
called?
Like
This
this
one?
one. Yeah,
Spud
it
mum?
is spud mum.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of these colors in right now for the fall season.
Mm-hmm.
And then carnations, a lot of people don't typically like carnations, especially like the more old school people, because typically those are the ones used in funeral arrangements. So a lot of like older clients will call and say, new carnations, they make me think of funerals. But really it's the mums that smell, that really have that funeral parlor smell. Like that's really, they make me think of funeral home, that's that smell. Now I'll move on to the PowerPoint. Okay, so we've talked about the top 3 flowers. There are 3 main reasons people purchase flowers. Special occasions. One thing about being in a floral shop is you hit all the big ones. You hit births, birthdays, weddings, and deaths. We get them all. When people,
That's the big
yeah.
one.
Oh yeah. We have just come off like fall wedding season, typically like April through June. We have almost every weekend dedicated to weddings, and then September through October, we had weddings in all but like maybe a couple weekends. So we've stayed pretty busy, and actually people are still getting married on into November. Because of the fall colors, people like to schedule their weddings in so they can decorate for fall. And then it'll pick back up a little bit at Christmas, and people want like the Christmas greens and stuff like that. People also order flowers to communicate feelings, like people come in and get red roses for love, or just to say thank you if somebody's helped them out with stuff, or
Like a get well.
yeah, like get well arrangements, and to create a pleasant atmosphere, because really some people just like them because they're pretty and they really can brighten up a space. We actually also have clients that come in and they're taking care of people with Alzheimer's, and they're to that point where they don't really remember much else, but flowers for some reason make them really happy, and like it connects, like they can smell the flowers and it kind of, the scent connects for them kind of.
Like a nostalgia.
Yeah, and so they can really, the people with Alzheimer's can really like connect to the scent and enjoy them, so we get a lot of those customers too.
I have a lot of churches, like they decorate like banquet halls.
Yeah, we do a lot of flowers for church, like for like receptions, or for like Sunday mornings even. People get like sanctuary arrangements for the fronts. 75% of cut flowers are actually produced from outside of the U.S., which really surprised me when I first started working in the industry, because almost all of our roses come from like Ecuador and Central America, because the process down there, like they can grow year round, whereas we cannot, and like they've just got the process so streamlined that I actually read an article that said if you are wanting to get into the industry, like as a grower, not to grow the big 3, because like Central America has already got it so down pat that it would be hard to be cost competitive with them just starting out. We also get a lot of bulbs from Holland in the spring, like hyacinths, tulips, and things like that. They'll actually, like the dealers will send us like what's called the Dutch assortment or something. It's just like a big box filled with like bulb type flowers. But U.S. growers can compete by growing high quality products like make your product competitive and worthwhile. Using proper handling and harvesting to keep prices low, because like flowers are super perishable. Some of them are more fragile than others. They'll bruise, they'll wilt. So the more like if you use the more correct ways to handle them, they'll last longer. If you aren't careful with your product, you can really mess it up and you'll just have to eat more cost.
What are some proper handling practices that you do?
That's a good question. Like for example, we do things to keep them viable for longer, because really the whole goal is to give the end customer maximum vase performance. Like when hydrangeas come into us, we dip the heads in cold water, and that helps preserve them. Yeah, and it kind of helps them last longer. Or even just when you're like moving them from like vase to a vase, or like from cooler to vase, just being gentle, because like it's so easy to knock the heads off flowers, like when you're going in and out, like that happens all the time. Just being careful with them and things like that. Also growing less common native varieties or for dried flowers. Like a lot of the local growers around here grow like dahlias, zinnias, sunflowers, stuff that wouldn't ship as easily, because it's easier to get that stuff locally. And I mean, it looks super great because it's so fresh. And always being on time, because a lot of times the florist will take orders for like weddings and things, and the brides have already picked out what they want, and then they'll place their order with the grower. And if the florist has promised clients flowers at a certain time, and then the grower for some reason doesn't get the flowers to them at a certain time, it can really mess everybody up, and then people are not happy.
For real.
When you choose a crop, you want to choose plants that do well in your area. I actually grow a few things for the florist that I work for. And like, for example, around here, zinnias grow super, super well. Like I didn't even plant zinnias this past spring, but from where I planted them last year, they just reseeded themselves and came up, and I had zinnias, and it was great. Like I'm still getting zinnias. And health, you want to keep them viable for as long as possible, so they'll have a long post-harvest life. You want to make sure your plants are healthy and free of disease and well watered, so that once they get cut, they'll last a long time for your customers. And harvesting, the best time is like from 8 p.m. or usually in the morning after the dew dries. Letting the dew dry is super important if you are doing any kind of shipping with your flowers, because like if you package them up to be shipped and they're still moist and wet, it can like cause mold and rot, and the leaves will get gross and the stems will be brown, and sometimes the blooms will be all water damaged, and then it's not good. The stage of flower development is super important too. When you cut your buds, you want to get them like when they're first starting to show color. I made a big mistake the first year. I tried to sell peonies from my little farm garden, because when I saw them in the flower shop, they were bloomed, like full bloom and really pretty. So I thought, oh, well that's when I need to cut it. Well, I cut them then, and then they didn't last long at all, because like they had already expended so much of their bloom time in my garden and used up so much of that energy. So really, when you cut, like for example, a peony, there's actually called a marshmallow stage. That's what I call it. And you want to, like, you squeeze the bud, and it feels like a little marshmallow, and they're about this wide around, and you squeeze it, and that's when you know it's ready to be cut. And then, like for example, if your florist has their wedding on Saturday and they need that peony for the bouquet, then you cut it, but you cut it on a Tuesday. It has time. The florist can like force it open throughout the week, and it'll be ready for the wedding. Yeah.
How do you force a bud open?
You can do things like put it in warm water, and because warm water, we'll get to that in a second.
Oh, okay, I see. I got you. You're right.
Yeah, warm water can speed up blooming. After you cut your flowers, their post-hot harvest treatment is super important. Like we have a cooler that looks similar to this, and it's just a big metal building that all it does is just cool and hold flowers. Typically, a lot of people like theirs 33 to 36 degrees, but you want to be careful when you do get it down to the 33. Like if something were to happen and there was a malfunction and it would go below 33 for a long period of time, you run the risk of kind of like freezing out your plant material, because plants have such a high water content in the leaves and stems and stuff, so they could get frostbitten. And plus they're sitting in buckets of water, so if they're left to freeze like overnight, it can cause like really expensive damage to your supply. The water temperature also has a big effect. Like when we get them in from Ecuador, they are cut down there on their farms. We get them from Florida. They come into Florida, and then we have like a flower kind of dealer who, like we order the flowers through them. They get them in, have this big warehouse, and my boss will call them and say, hey, we need like 20 packs of red roses. That's a super amount of red roses, but like we need red roses this week, pink roses, and yellow roses, and they will send them to her. And then we get them like rush FedExed, like within a day or two. So that's how they come to us, but they're so processed that we have to kind of revive them. The flowers, one of the delivery people told me one time that the flowers that they use at Valentine's are actually cut mid-January, and then they are processed with so many preservatives to keep them so that by the time they get to the florist in America, they're ready to use. So you have to kind of like cut the ends, and then we dip them in this, it's called quick dip. And it kind of helps like get the stems ready to take up water again, because they've been without water for so long. And then we put them in that warm water because it causes a more rapid uptake of water to kind of rehydrate them and get them looking fresh again. And then cool water, it assists in temperature reduction. So after they've been cut, like once or twice a week, like we'll change out the water in all the buckets. So we just put cool water in them then, because they've already kind of soaked up. The water quality, they recommend 3 to 5.5 pH for most preservatives. The water depth, the water only gets absorbed at the root, at the stem, at the bottom of the stem. So too much water can rot your stem and reduce airflow within your cooler, because you need to have good airflow so that it doesn't get stagnant and cause mold, because mold is a really big problem. Ethylene gas is also a problem, so you want to keep some plants like not in the cooler and in a well-ventilated area, or if you do put them in the cooler, make sure they have room to kind of breathe. This is like a control group, and this is one that's been exposed to a lot of ethylene gas, because that can really, really cut down on the life of your flowers. Pulsing, which is placement briefly in sugar and silver thiophosphate to extend vase life. The STS is, like, have y'all ever gotten flowers and they come with a little packet with a little, and it looks like little white powdery stuff? That's the STS. It's, I think, called, what we use is Flora Life, we put it in all the buckets, but that helps to extend your vase life too when you put that in the water. And also keeping the water clean, like just changing it out every couple days has a really big effect on how long your flowers will live. It's also important to remove about 1/3 of the leaves. Like if this is your stem and here's your bucket, you wouldn't want stems all the way down in your water, because that can really, like, they'll start rotting and that'll dirty up your water, and it just makes things super gross. And it's also important to recut stems underwater to reduce stem air bubbles. A lot of people don't always do this, we don't always do this, but like stems are kind of like straws, they're just always soaking up. So like if you cut it and leave it out of the water for a long time and then put it back in, then you run the risk of getting like little air bubbles in your stem. Pricing, production versus demand is when demand is higher than expected, which can double, when you double your production, it may drive your price down, because you have to, like if you have to double your production unexpectedly, you're in the risk of having to pay employees to stay longer, pay more employees to get your work done, to buy more greenery and flowers and supplies than you anticipated, which can drive your profits down. Grading, it's different per country, but here in the United States, class 1 is less than 12 hours from harvest, and it's free from damage and pests. So like the flowers that I would grow could technically be considered class 1 because usually I cut them before work that morning and take them straight to the shop. They don't have to go through like FedEx or anything like that. They are just cut and delivered. Definitely 12 hours, less than 12 hours from harvest. And then there's also other standards, like the stem has to be a certain length and your bud for some flowers has to be a certain width, and it can't have much damage. Then class 2 is 12 to 24 hours from harvest. I think that would be like a lot of farmers markets and stuff. Farmers markets could be class 1 too, just depending on when they harvest, but less than 10% of damage. And then class 3, most of what we get in at the shop is class 3. That doesn't mean that it's not still good quality. It's just not as fresh. Like it just wasn't picked as quickly and delivered as quickly to us as the other two, but they still last and usually are of really good quality.